this meeting called to order. So I will call this meeting to order. And I would like to share that I am sitting within the unceded and shared territory of the Lillooet Nation and the Squamish Nation. The SLRD is found within the territories of several First Nations, including Lillooet, Squamish, and Shtutliam, and small parts of the SLRD are also overlapped with the territories of the Squamish-Lillooet, Nalakmek, Silkatine, and I don't want to say it wrong, but there is I can't say it. I don't know how to say it. Nations. The SLRD has committed to becoming a regional district of reconciliation, and we know that there is much work ahead. We are committed to learning and listening to the First Peoples of this land. Part of this work is to lean into the tragic discovery of 215 children in unmarked graves at the former site of the Kamloops Indian Residential School. This heartbreaking discovery is yet more evidence of the harms Indigenous people have suffered and continue to suffer as a result of Canada's colonial policies. It is incumbent on all of us to make this commitment so that these tragedies are understood so that they will not be repeated. Let us please take a moment of silence so that we can each make this commitment. Thank you. Okay, could I have someone please move approval of the agenda? Moved by Director Demare, seconded by Director Mack. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Could I have someone move 4.1, which is the resolution required pursuant to the ministerial order number M192 for local meetings, local government meetings and bylaw process for COVID-19. Could I have someone move that? Moved by Director Demare, seconded by Director Stoner. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We are probably 2 minutes early for the delegation, but perhaps they're here early and we can get them settled. Good afternoon. We have Kim Cox, Resource Planning, and Sabrina Locicero, Community Relations from BC Hydro. And they are here to present to us today on the Cheakamus Water Use Plan Order Review. Good afternoon, welcome, and I'll turn the floor to you.
That's great, thank you. I'll just make sure you can hear me. I've had some mic issues. Great. Thank you. Thank you for the time today. That's correct. It's my name is Sabrina Locicero with Community Relations in the Sea to Sky Bridge region, joined by Kim Cox, who's leading the project we're going to give you an update on today, which is the Cheakamus Water Use Plan Order Review. It's a project we started engagement earlier this year. We've had some public engagement activities and working with key stakeholders and wanted to set up some time to bring you up to date with the work that's been done and in particular look ahead at what the order review will look like going forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kim to start the presentation.
Thanks, Sabrina. Next slide. So this is just a pretty photo of Daisy Lake Dam. And the next slide. Just to orient folks to our Cheakamus system, Daisy Lake Dam in Daisy Lake at the top of your screen there, you'll see a power tunnel which flows over to the Cheakamus powerhouse, which then discharges into the Squamish River. And then we also have a flow release out of Daisy Lake Dam down the Cheakamus River, and where the two come together near Brackendale, there's a water survey camp engaged there that we use point for a lot of our monitoring studies. So this plant is located about 40 kilometers. Yeah.
Sorry, you're very hard to hear. You're breaking up. If you can maybe sit closer or.
Yes. Is that
Yes,
better?
great.
Yeah.
I think so. Thank you.
So yeah, this plant is about 40 kilometers north of Squamish. It provides power to about 96,000 homes a year. And if we could have the next slide. Just a little bit of background about the water use planning process. So the province created a water use planning process.
Sorry, Kim, I think you're still cutting out, at least for me. I'm not sure if others are hearing that as well. Oh, and now we've lost her.
Lost me.
Oh, there you are. Audio,
Okay.
Just your audio.
Yeah, I stopped talking. Okay, I have the mic right beside me now. That works really good. Is that going to be okay?
It's okay right now. I guess we'll have to see. Yeah.
Okay. So we completed the first 12 steps of the water use plan in Checkers in the early 2000s. We received our order from the water controller for Checkers operation in 2006. So we've been operating under that water use plan operation since 2007. And now at this stage, we're doing our review of that order. The next slide. So just in its sort of basic terms, the order review is really about looking at all the monitoring studies, the data that we collected in that time of WAP operations, and assessing whether or not the order changes have yielded the anticipated benefit. So we will look at those 10 studies, confirm everything we were ordered to do was complete, and then determine if the intent of the order was met, and if it hasn't, then we would be recommending options to that intent. Next slide. These are the objectives of the original water use plan, and we're using these objectives to articulate priority issues for the water use plan order review. So power, flooding, recreation, First Nations and cultural, and fish and aquatic ecosystems are kind of the interests that will be represented in our process. Next slide. Just a little bit about the WAP order itself. As I said, we've been operating that way. We completed our process in 2006. We have a maximum reservoir elevation. There is a flood buffer, a reservoir elevation that's dictated between the 1st of October and the end of December. We also have minimum releases from the dam in the river, according to fish flows. There are minimum flows near Brockendale, and then there are ramping rates as well, which is that would the water out of the facility for both the Squamish, for both the generating plant at Squamish River and the river. Next slide.
Sound is still really broken. I'm missing about half of what you're saying. I'm not sure if there's another way, headset or something.
Yeah, I'll just try going just the audio off the laptop. That'll work. Okay, does that help at all? Yes, good. Okay, keep me posted if we have more problems. All right, so the next slide is just sort of a pictorial of the process overall. The water use planning process began in June of '99, wrapped up in 2006. We've been in an implementation of that order since then. In March, we began some engagement and work around identifying the priority issues that we would be addressing or looking at in the order review. We're just wrapping up our process around identifying those priority issues, and I'll show some of those to you in a couple slides. And we will move into analysis of some alternatives, ways to address those issues in our operations. And coming out of that process, spring of next year, we'll have some recommendations, which Hydro will then prepare a report and submit to the comptroller. Next slide. In terms of identifying issues, these are the inputs that we have for that. So we looked at the consultative committee report and the water use plan report itself to look back and see what the issues were at that time. We've obtained a bunch of new information since that order was issued. So we have results of all the monitoring studies. In the last couple of years, we implemented Cheakamus adaptive stranding protocol. So we have the information from that. We have operational experience, and then we've also worked to seek input from the Squamish Nation, from the regulators, and from stakeholders. So next slide. Preliminary priority issues. We do have sort of a more detailed document that goes into quite a bit more detail about these. I've attempted here to take them to a sort of a quick overview for you. If you would like more information on them, we absolutely have more. So power production, as we did in the water use plan, we model the power generation revenue in the scenarios, the operating scenarios. Ramping rates and operational flexibility remain a key consideration. In terms of flooding, we will look at the effectiveness of the WUP order operations in terms of mitigating flooding, and look to see if that reservoir buffer and the flow targets that we set have been working. For recreation, there was one study conducted for angling, which we will review. And we also will review and discuss the flows, the recreation flows in the summertime for rafting and kayaking. Cultural values, we're still working with the Squamish Nation and collaborating with them to define their set of priority issues. Next. And then fish gets a slide all to itself. There's quite a number of fish issues that we'll be exploring, and we've also struck a fish technical group, which will be meeting in between the order review committee meetings. So fish stranding, fish productivity, and fish habitat. We did 9 studies looking at fish. And so we'll be synthesizing all of that information and working with regulators and stakeholders and other parties to look at these issues and how they might relate to our operations and how we can improve them. Next steps. So we're just now looking at setting up our order review advisory committee. So we have folks represented at that committee. We had a setup meeting for that group a couple weeks ago. We are looking at some dates for a fish technical meeting in July. We're working on an engagement, like a collaboration agreement with the Squamish Nation, and finalizing our engagement process with them. And then we also held a public meeting this month, and we will continue to have ongoing public engagement at key points in our process. So next. Sabrina, do you want to close us off for the slides?
Sure. Yeah, so as Kim mentioned, we have a number of areas of engagement that we're working on, including we have our public engagement. We've been working with key stakeholders in a number of ways, and having virtual open houses. So all of that will be ongoing, and we're targeting that website you have there, bchydro.com/Cheakamus watershed. Will be updated as we go through that process. So welcome to visit that site, and of course, put my contact information up there. Please reach out with any questions. And with that, maybe we'll open it up to questions. And apologies for the sound that may lead to some questions, but happy to go back to cover some things that might have been missed there.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none. Go ahead, Director Rainbow. You're muted, Tony. And then Director Stone.
Yeah, I don't understand the term benthic productivity. Can someone help me with that?
Oh, benthic productivity is the invertebrate community in the basically the riverbed. So all the insects and food for fish in the river. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And Director Stoner, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, just wondering if you can clarify who sits on the advisory committee for this sort of work, and what, how the general public hears about the engagement sessions.
Yeah, so the advisory committee has representatives from DFO, from Ministry of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations, from BC Hydro. There were invitations for Squamish and Whistler and you guys, and then also the Squamish River Watershed Society, a representative from an angling association. Have I missed anyone, Sabrina?
No, I think that
covers
it.
Squamish First Nation and the Squamish
Yes.
First Nation. Yes. Did you want to comment on the public engagement side of it, Sabrina? The lead on that.
Yes. Yeah. So and maybe just to cover off for the advisory committee, and the intent is to have that balance of interest, so that hence the cross section of participants there. But yeah, on the public engagement side, we've held virtual open houses. Hopefully we can transition to in-person in the community at some point. We'll see. It's looking good for the fall, but we've been doing advertisements online and in print, and reaching out to our key stakeholders. We've started to develop some contact lists, just reaching out to the public, and again, working through our key contacts and key stakeholders and trying to grow that. So yeah, if there are stakeholders that you identified that you want to make sure are on our regular communications list, please send them our way and we'll make sure they're up to speed. Our hope is to continue those as we get to the different project milestones. The advisory committee will be, there's a significant time commitment there, so they will be working when they start up, hopefully in the next few months. As we they go through the analysis and we get to those milestones, we'll provide updates as we go. That's part of what we'll work through as we set up and start to look through what the meeting schedule will look like more specifically, and what updates we'll have through that analysis process.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Director Rainbow.
Sabrina, I just wondered, could you confirm or give me your email address so I can send you a couple of names?
Definitely, it's in the presentation. It's also my first name, sabrina.locicero@bchydro.com.
Oh,
I can email you directly as well. Maybe I can do that.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here today, and thank you for your continued engagement with our board and with our communities. It's very helpful and we appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Anytime. Okay.
Thank you. Take
Thanks
care.
a lot. Okay. All right. Great. We are back on the agenda at number 6, the consent agenda. I have someone move the consent agenda, moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Birch-Jones.
I want to remove one item if I could.
Okay.
Item 6.3.4.
6.3.4.
Yeah.
District of Saanich. Okay. We'll add that to the end, Director Clark, to.
Thanks, Chair. We can add that as 12.3, please.
So I'll move the consent agenda as amended.
Okay. 6.3.4. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. We're on 8.1.1. This is a request for decision. Is Director Needham coming in?
Oh, thanks, Chair. I don't see her in the waiting room.
Is she meant to?
No, but well, we don't need it.
Okay. Okay, so this, I just want to, for the sake of consistency, let me get through this. This is a request for decision on the Pemberton Meadows Electoral Area C Development Variance Permit Application number 161. Director Mack, would you like to speak to it, please?
Yes, I'd like to move it as presented by the EAD committee. We talked about this at length at 2 meetings, and it was passed unanimously to allow this to move forward unconditionally.
Okay, so I have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Director Birch Jones. Is there any further discussion? I saw a bunch of hands at one moment. Were there any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 8.1.2 is a request for decision on the Divine Transfer Station Fees and Charges Regulation Bylaw number 1597 and Amendment Bylaw number 1719-2021. Would anyone like to move that? Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Elliott. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're on 8.2.
adoption. Can I
Oh.
move adoption?
Yes, please. Moved by Director Elliott, seconded by
And I'll
Director Mack.
second that.
Is there any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. 8.1.3, the Anderson Dock Improvements, Director Mack.
Yes, I'll move this. I guess the first that. And yeah, so I'll move that and wait for the second that.
Seconded.
Okay, so that $4,500 be allocated from Area C amenity funds to the cost center. We have a mover, we have a seconder, and Director Birch Jones. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Director Mack.
And I'll move the second that.
Okay, that $5,500 be granted from Area C amenity funds to the Anderson Lake Historical Society on a reimbursement basis. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Demare. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are on 8.1.4, Heritage Sites Funding Opportunities. Director Rainbow, would you like to speak to it?
Just briefly, we've had a couple of things come up in EAD the last couple of months, and it seemed to me that it might be worth spending a little bit of time, someone spending some time, just taking a look around the region as a whole, including the municipalities, and coming up with a list of heritage sites, museums, etc., and then to consider the possibility of exploring grant availability that could be spread amongst different organizations, rather than leaving a small entity like the little rail heritage site in Seton to take care of itself. We have 2 mining museums, one at Britannia, one I believe there's one in Braylon, is it, Sal? Is that right? Yeah. So, you know, are there, they each have to worry about themselves. Are there ways which we as a regional district could sort of facilitate a sort of a joint funding issue or initiative? So it would take some, what I'm asking is that some staff time be allocated to that, or do we contract it out to somebody, put some money into it?
Okay, I have a question from Director Elliott.
I know that we have Mandy on board as our regional business liaison, and is this something that could fall under her contract, is to support heritage organizations with grant opportunities?
CEO Helmer.
Thank you, Chair. I think that it could potentially, her position is a term position that could get us through at the moment for any immediate needs, because she supports businesses as well as nonprofit organizations and charities and any type of business like that as well. So she could certainly be a resource for that at the moment.
Right. And I asked that question because I'm a bit loath to put more work on staff's plate. But that resource is there today, and we can certainly communicate to these organizations that that's what she's there for. And that's an instant solution.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Rainbow.
If I could just follow up that we discussed this at EAD, but the reason we wanted to bring it to the board is that we want to include municipalities and the electoral areas, look at resources throughout the whole region and not just focus on the electoral areas. So I guess that would require a willingness on the part of the municipalities to have us talking to people within their jurisdictions. So,
Director Elliott.
Through the chair, our regional business liaison is already working in all of the municipalities. So she's an amazing asset and is already in touch with our staff. That's why I'm wondering if we can just remind these organizations that this person is there to provide that support in the short term. And then if it needs a further discussion, we would refer it to budget.
So do we need a resolution to that effect, or is it just understood that that can and will happen?
Staff. CAO Helmer.
So thank you, Chair. That is part of the scope of Mandy's current job description and responsibilities. So from her perspective, she will support any of those groups to the full extent she's able to, subject to her capacity. But she's got a lot of energy and enthusiasm. I expect she'll be a great support. I think that what could be the other piece that was referenced a minute ago is that if there are groups reaching out to any of the directors that are interested in support, or that the directors are speaking with and think could benefit from that support, that the directors could also provide that linkage as well, so that we can come at it from both ends. That would be helpful. In which case, I think that would be just a collaboration that we're going to do naturally, and I'm not seeing a resolution needed to support that part. Unless we come to budget and you see an ongoing need that that isn't being addressed.
Okay. Does that work for you, Director Rainbow?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll move receipt of this for information. Moved by Director Elliott, seconded by Director Mack. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have Ministry of Flinroe, Brian Moore, a request for a letter to Flinroe regarding a thank you letter, bringing the matter of the Downton Forest Service Road to the SLRD's attention. Did anybody want to speak to that? Go ahead, Director Birch-Jones.
Thank you, Chair. That would be Area B. The Downton Forest Service Road is about 22 kilometers south of Lillooet on 99, and it accesses some spectacular backcountry skiing, ice climbing, hiking, etc. And the first bridge at about 1 kilometer is in need of repair. So they've alerted us to that. Subsequent to this being put on the agenda, I've been alerted to the fact that the engineer has visited and closed the road because of the dangerous bridge currently. So this is a big problem for us in Area B. I would like to write this letter to Brian Moore. I would like to thank him for bringing it to our attention, and we'd like to be included in working on a solution. How's that?
Okay.
Kept informed and be able to participate in future discussions regarding the matter. That's fine. And also that a copy be sent to Recreation Sites and Trails BC to the attention of Officer Tim Bennett. There is a rec site right at the base of this road that could be expanded on, you know, lots of good ideas, but we need to be at the table. So I'll move that pretty much as it's fine.
I have a seconder, seconded by Director Demare. Any further discussion? Director Mack?
No, I was just going to second it. It's a great
Okay.
idea. Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, final comments? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And then we have Ms. LaFrance here for 8.1.6. Good afternoon, Ms. LaFrance. Welcome. Director LaFrance, I'm sorry. Welcome, and we are on 8.1.6, which is a request for decision for the adoption of the board policy number 26/2021, federal gas tax community works funds. Did you want to speak to it?
Yes, hello board. This is Susanna France, Director of Finance. And this policy has been introduced to the EAD committee, and it basically allows a little bit more streamlined processes when dealing with community works funds as part of the gas tax funding, the federal gas tax funding. So this policy looked at the administration requirements based on the two agreements. There's the main agreement with with Canada, and then the secondary agreement with UBCM, and looked at ways we can ensure we're going to be following these administrative agreements. So I don't know if you want me to go through each area. Basically, there will be a form that's attached to this policy that all the projects will be completing prior to approval, and I'll be reviewing them as the approval based on the requirements of the gas tax funding. And then these approved forms will go to the EAD committee for their review. And of course, the form does state that there has to be EAD support already in there. So the EAD directors involved in the projects will have to have their own support for the project as well within that form. And it also, the policy dictates the allocation processes that we're currently using for the SLRD's gas tax funding. And that was approved by the board resolution many years ago, but it's just stated in the policy now for basically for staff's information and for the board. And I'll take any questions if there are any on the policy.
Any questions? Director Rainbow, go ahead.
Oh, does it have to be a question?
Yes.
I don't have a question. I have a comment. I would
Do
say
you want to move the recommendation and then we can go to comments?
absolutely. I'll
Okay.
do that.
Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Demare. Comments? Director Rainbow and then Director Mack.
I just want to thank Director LaFrance for putting the work into this. The Community Works Gas Tax Fund has been a mystery to me for some time. I know that during just about the whole of the first term, I found it almost impossible to get anything approved, to any kind of project approved for funding from that source. Something happened and they loosened up the restrictions, added some, changed the criteria. And so it made it a little easier to do it. But I'm constantly going back and forth with Suzanne about whether this fits, whether that fits. And she's talking to UBCM and, it's taking a lot of time. So this, I think, is a great first step. Makes it easier for electoral area directors to make an application. I think the other thing that we need to do is we need to get onto UBCM, maybe FCM, and ask for some more changes to make it easier to spend money in the electoral areas. The whole gas tax fund it's set up really for municipalities. It's much easier to spend the money in a municipality than it is in an electoral area. There are times we run across issues where, no, you can't have it for that because we don't own the land. We need to own the land to be able to spend the money in that way. Whereas in a municipality, you've maybe got the land, you've got facilities in place already, and you can add to them, like libraries, swimming pools, etc. We don't have those kinds of things in electoral areas, or very few anyway. And we have money allocated. And at one point, I had $1 million sitting there doing nothing because I couldn't find ways to get approval to spend it. It's still difficult. So I would like us to adopt this and move along with this. I think it's a great first step, but I'd like to see us doing some advocacy to have further changes to make the whole funding more realistic and easier to use in unincorporated areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Director Birch-Jones.
Thank you. And thank you, Susanna Franz, for all your work on this. I gave it my most critical read. And this fund has been really important and done some really good work in B. So I definitely read all of it closely. And there's a shift where staff are more in the lead on identifying projects and less maybe the EAD directors. But there's nothing to stop us as EAD directors from proposing ideas to you to look at, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. See, thank you.
Any other comments? I would just suggest that you chat with Grace McGregor, the EAD representative at the UBCM board. She's pretty useful if you haven't already. I see Director Demare and then Director Mack.
Hey, Russell was first.
Okay, go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, thanks, Sal. I just want to say thank you to Suzanne for all the hard work, and she's always so helpful trying to figure out if we can spend the money, and I appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Okay, Director Demare.
Yeah, the same thing. Thank you, Suzanne. It's very clear now what we can do with what we have right now, and I wish I had more of it. But anyway, yeah, and I look forward to the PILT and the Select Fund also being established, very similar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. Is anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we have one recommendation from PVIS. 8.2.1, the May 2021 Pemberton and Community Fund Report. Are we just moving this for receipt? No, we're moving that the funding.
Yeah, I'll move this.
Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Demare. Is there any comments or questions? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Director Demare, do you have a question?
No, I'm gonna have to leave the meeting now.
Okay.
So thank you, everyone. It was a good few hours. Okay, bye.
Goodbye, thank you. Oops. All right. And then we have Director Needham joining us for 9.1.
I have admitted her. She's just taking a few minutes to come in. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Chair, do we need to go through these sort of in pairs, like the whole string of that's there? How are we going to do it?
Well, each area has its third reading and then adoption. So it'll be,
Okay.
we could probably do the 3 third readings together and then the 3 adoptions together if we wanted to. But if someone wants to change something in that, then we have to do them each individually. Am I right, Director Clark?
I think it's 4, not 3.
Sorry.
isn't it?
And so in this case, they're third reading and they are a referral to MOTI.
Right. Before adoption, sorry.
So, Chair, Director Needham has been having some technical difficulties and it looks like she still is. So perhaps we could come back to this item. Oh, she may have just arrived.
Okay. See a block with her name on
Right.
it.
She is not muted. I wonder if she can hear us, but just doesn't have video.
Director Needham.
Can you hear us, Kim?
Chair, she says she can't hear us.
Okay. Why don't we defer 9.1? Admit her whenever she can get connected. Maybe she needs to disconnect and reconnect. And we'll skip on to 9.2, or did we need her for that as well? No.
I will let Director LaFrance in for
Okay.
this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, Director LaFrance. Thank you. We are on 9.2, Security Issuing Bylaw 1723-2021 regarding District of Squamish. Do you want to speak to that briefly?
Sure, yeah, this is a security issuing request from the District of Squamish for their multiple capital purchases, and all of the information is attached for their bylaws as well to the back. And this will allow them to borrow for the MFA's fall borrowing, which is MFA has a borrowing issue twice a year.
Right. Director Rainbow, do you have a question?
I wanted to move first, second, and third reading.
Okay. Were there any questions? No. So moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Elliott. Are there any comments? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And then would someone like to move adoption? Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Stoner. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Director LaFrance. And thank you all. Good. Okay, should we carry on to 10.1? Let's do that. CAO verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing today.
Nothing to report. Okay, 10.2, the information report on the 2021 first quarter financial remaining services. Do we have? We should just lump everything together so that we just get it all in one shot. All right. Welcome back, Director LaFrance. Did you want to speak to this? 10.2. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
This is the remaining first quarter financials. That's correct. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
I just like the board to see all of the financial statements, as it is, a board decision on the budget. So you should see all of the financial statements as well. And so this is just all of the remaining services that aren't the regional services. So the ones that you've seen already would be like the general government and land planning and zoning. So this is everything else. It's a little too early to see any issues with any services, particularly because January to March doesn't have a lot of activity. But there are a few overspends that I don't think will be an issue. But I'll bring back any information for the second quarter financials if there is some type of service that may be in a deficit situation at the end of the year. And I can just answer any questions if anybody has anything specific they want to ask about a cost center.
Director Birch-Jones.
Thank you, Chair Ward. On page 333, page 10 of your report, Susanna France, I see Hacklip Community Forest Corporation, and I was curious what that was related to.
That's in the emergency planning budget.
Supplier costs.
You're talking about someplace in the notes that states.
There's just a list of supplier costs on your report, page 10 of 13, page 332 in my PDF. And I just $9,613.51. And I thought,
The director's on the Sophie report.
Oh, we're on this is the Q1 financial. Sorry, Vivian.
You're one step ahead, Vivian.
You're in the.
oh,
That's why I couldn't.
I'm not really ahead. Sorry if I'm out of order.
It's okay. We'll come back to you. Okay. Were there any questions on the first report, the 10.2? Seeing none, could I have someone move receipt for information? Moved by Director Weeb, seconded by Director Crompton. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for that report. And we'll move on to the Sophie, the Statement of Financial Information for 2020. And now I will go back to Director LaFrance.
I'm just pulling up the report on my screen so I can see exactly where. So yeah, I'll just introduce the report. So these financial statements are required via the province, and basically takes our financial statements and kind of reworks them into different categories that the province requires us to report on. And so there is the the director's remuneration report, as well as the employee remuneration report, and also reporting on our supplier costs. This year, we did a little bit of more work separating the supplier costs from our own suppliers to contributions and grants. We did a little bit of research on these definitions because the actual Financial Information Act is silent on these specific definitions. So we just researched other definitions out there, and the contributions that we have listed are basically for other societies. So if we're funding a society for a contribution bylaw per se, for example, the fire protection services, like the Braylorn Fire Protection Service, we just keep that as a contribution versus a supplier, since they will then use their own suppliers to with that funding. If I'm not really good at explaining things, but the contributions now show everything that is just being sent to a society, and which includes other local governments too. So the contribution for I can't even think of an example, but basically, and then the grants, that's an easier one. So grants aren't specific to a bylaw or an agreement. It's just, this is a grant for a specific purpose based on a resolution, but it's not a contribution for a service that we could audit and request information on, if that makes any sense. So that's the one change we made this year. And I'll look into that question you had, Vivian, for the supplier costs, the community forest group. I believe that has to do with their Fire Smart grants. So with the emergency planning, we receive Fire Smart grants, and we hire sometimes the First Nations to do their fire smarting as part of that grant. And I believe that's what that's for.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone on these? Seeing none, could I have someone move? Oh, right, that we authorize the signing of the Sophie report, moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Crompton. Final discussion. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you very much. Oops, she left. I thought we had Kim here. Oh, she's phoned in. Okay, great.
I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
Hi there. I'm good. My apologies for my computer problems.
No problem.
Okay, so are we on the housekeeping amendments?
Yes, we're back to 9.1. Okay. And we're
great.
Happy to hear from you if you have any comments. Otherwise, we can move these in 4 separate resolutions.
That's fine. I don't think I need to say anything because nothing has changed since the board last saw this.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. So we're going to move these as Area A, then Area B, then and so on, Director Clark? Yep. Okay. Director Rainbow, question?
Could we not have a resolution that we do third reading in A, B, C, and D? Do they have to be done separately?
We could, sorry, we could also do 2 sets of 4.
I'll move third reading for area A, B, C, and D.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Director Birch Jones. Any questions, Director Mack? Or comment?
No, I was just seconding it.
Okay. I have a delay on your camera, so you come up after. It's all good. Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. And then the second motion is to refer in areas A, B, C, and D. So these are the referrals before adoption. This isn't moving straight to adoption. Am I right on that? Anyone want to make that motion? Moved by Director Elliott, seconded by Director Rainbow. Any comments? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks.
Good.
Thank you. Okay, back to the agenda. We're at 10.4, and this is the engagement framework. Do we have, perfect. And we have Ms. Westerholm here. Good afternoon.
Hi, sorry, looks like it's a technically challenged day here.
I think you're right. All right.
Thanks. Good afternoon. Nice to see everyone. Patricia Westerholm, Communications and Engagement Manager with the SLRD. I'm here today to answer any questions you might have about the information report in your agenda package regarding the development of an engagement strategy for the SLRD. The purpose of that report is to update the board on the status of this project, which has been in development since the fall of 2019. One of the first components of this project was to have staff participate in the International Association for Public participation training. And that training was originally scheduled for 2 of us in early 2020. With the COVID-19 pandemic, however, in-person training was suspended, and the trainers delivering the program shifted their gears to develop an entirely online training module, which was delivered later that year. And I completed the training in September. My colleague, Philippa Campbell, completed the training earlier this year. And as well, we organized the IAP2 Training for Decision Makers session late last year, which many, if not all of you, participated in. Additionally, over the course of the last year and a half, and while we were undertaking this training, staff has also spent a considerable amount of time researching engagement best practices and exploring the practices of our member municipalities, as well as other regional districts in the province, and also looking at some new tools for community engagement. And now we are in a good position to move forward with the next phase of this project, which would be to initiate stakeholder interviews and a resident survey to gauge the current level of engagement with the SLRD, find out a bit around people's satisfaction around engagement with the SLRD, and to hear directly from folks on how they would like to engage with the SLRD, and potentially on ways to improve our community engagement efforts. All of this information from the survey and interviews, along with the research that we have done to this point, will help to inform the strategy. And our goal is to present that draft strategy along with any other related materials, including, we're working on a toolkit for staff and some other things, to present that to the board before the end of this year. So that is just a little bit of an update and a summary that brings us to where we are today with this project. And I am happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Great. Director Richmond, question.
Thanks, Ms. Westerholm, for the report. I'm glad to see this work is ongoing. I think it's really exciting. My only thought or concern is around the stakeholder survey. I think in the report it says it will go on through the summer, and I'm just a little bit worried, as much as I want to see it carry on, about how much uptake you'll get at that time of year. So I just want to flag that and see what your thoughts were there.
You're muted.
Sorry, I had unmuted myself, I swear. Thanks for that, and through the chair. We did think about that, and there's 2 parts, and that we would do, we've identified some stakeholders, and we'll be doing a little bit more work on that list, and wanted to reach out directly to do interviews with some of those folks. So those would be, they'd have the option of doing those over the phone with us, or we could send them questions and they could answer by email. And then we'd also have the survey, which they could participate in that as well, but that would be more for the broader public. And with the stakeholder interviews, we have the ability to, depending on the particular group, to also shift the questions a little bit particular to a group. So that's really helpful information to get. And timing is certainly, it's always a little bit of a challenge, but I think summer is definitely a factor. So I think, how I was approaching it was that we could start with that process, maybe see how much traction we get and how quickly and how thoroughly we can move forward. And if it looks like the timing is just not going to be conducive to that, or we're not going to get the amount of information back that we'd like to, or be able to connect with as many folks as we can always delay that a bit if we have to. But we've done a lot of research over the last year and a half, so we have probably more information than we could ever really utilize, which is good. That's a good position to be in. So we have lots to work with, and I think it'll be important to monitor that for sure, and just to make sure that we are getting that feedback, because that's a really key piece to engage about our engagement strategy.
Awesome, thank you. I think it's really great work. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. And I have someone move receipt. Moved by Director Crompton, second by Director Elliott. Any further discussion? Excellent work. Thank you so much for your very, very deep understanding of this. This is great. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you. We're on 11.1 chair's verbal, and we're going to go to the round table. Let's start with, everyone's still good for timing? We're good? Okay. Let's start in area B. Oh no, you're doing regional moment tomorrow, right?
I am. That's all agriculture. So I don't think I have anything all that earth shattering. We have a pretty out of control fire at Lytton down the road, about 350 hectares. So we're watching that. They are opening up the campsites and the rec sites and even Quatlinomo at Fountain. So that's a very good thing. I talked about the Downton Forest Service Road. We had a really tragic suicide here last week of a young man, and the whole community was out for that on the weekend. This is sort of just another layer of sadness. There's been so many losses in our neighboring communities. I'll stop right there and take some time with agriculture tomorrow.
Okay. Area C.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, lots going on now that things are starting to open up. Campsites are full, lots of trailers coming up here, campers, whatnot. I know Birkenhead Lake Park and everything are booked solid. This weekend, we have the first farmers market on Saturday at Gates Lake Park. That'll be really neat. And I know people are participating in the farmers market in Pemberton, which is really good. I think it's off to a really good start from what I've heard from some of the vendors. Lots of farming activity going on now. It's haying season, so that's all a wonderful thing. And yeah, it's just a busy time of the year. So it's a good time to be around. Thanks.
Thank you. Area D.
So, sorry, was that me?
Yep.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
doing the areas first. I'm changing things up, getting crazy.
My God, confused. Okay. I just have a few comments about some infrastructure projects that we've got going on down here, which we're, yeah, in various states of excitement. I'll start with the toilets. They are built. The structures are up. The thrones aren't yet installed, but they will be shortly. We have a meeting on Friday afternoon with Fairy Creek Community Association members and Fine Peace and myself, and we're going to be looking at this, where we're at and what else we need to do. We're looking for a grand opening on Canada Day. So you could expect some kind of a picture. I'm not quite sure what it might show, but you'll get something. I was going to make a comment about Barb's, I'll have to paraphrase what she said about being at the rear end of the district. I think perhaps with the toilets in place, we could qualify as being the rear end of the district now. So that's one thing. Second thing is the deck at the end of the spit at Fairy Creek, at Oliver's Landing, has been almost completely dismantled now. They started work on it Monday morning. And we're not having a new deck, we are having a viewing platform. And that will be ready to be opened or available to the public on August the 1st. So that's good news. And another piece of good news there as well is we're putting recycling into practice there. The contract called for them to rip the old deck apart and throw it away. But we have, I talked to staff about that, and they talked to the contractor, and what's happening now is they're very carefully pulling it apart. It maybe cost us a little bit more, but we're going to end up with quite a bit of lumber that can be repurposed. Some of it has to be junk because it was split and broken and bad, but some of it we can repurpose it on various community projects around Fairy Creek. So that's really good. The the children's playground at Britannia Beach. That is, we're still struggling, I guess, with some permits for that. And I think there's a variance that has to come to the board, probably not until next month now, and well, not until next month. I was hoping that playground would be up and ready to go at the beginning of the summer, but we're now looking at September. So better late than never, but it will be happening. And one of the things we want to do there, again, recycling, is the equipment that was there was declared to be unsafe, and there's some work needed to be done to bring it up to the proper standards. But we're trying to put in place a plan whereby that can be done to that equipment, and the equipment reused in the Upper Squamish Valley in their playground. So there are some liability issues to work through, but we think it's possible. And so that's good news as well, rather than just throw stuff away, that we put some time into it and repurpose it, and somebody else gets the benefit of it. And the last thing is that a group of people in Britannia brought a proposal forward for a pump track for 5 to 12-year-olds. Run into a little bit of a problem with it about where it might be, because where they wanted to do it initially, there were some homeowners that didn't like it in that place. So we found another place down near the wastewater treatment plant, but staff are a little bit concerned about where that is. So, but I think we can resolve it, and that will be up and running once we get the issue of where it's going to be. We can have that going by I would think by the end of July. So 4 things happening there in the southern part of Area D, and like I say, we're various degrees of excitement about those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go up to Lillooet. Director Weeb.
Okay, what can I say? Monday on Indigenous Day, we had a lovely parade here in Lillooet, and actually the pride flag was moved from in front of the museum down to City Hall so that we could raise the Statlium flag so at the museum, and we are in the process of purchasing another flagpole to have all 3 flags there, but that's been a long time coming, and it was wonderful. The parade stopped there and they did a flag raising song in Statlium. Yeah, it was a nice day, and it was hotter than everywhere. We had our MOTI meeting, which Area B director was at as well. They're telling us the 10-mile slide is 90% done, which if you drive through it, you'd go, okay, that 90% must be down by the river somewhere, because I can't see it. And it's got potholes in there that you could lose a small child or a car, or you don't want to go through there with an e-bike. BC Hydro was at that meeting, and they're putting some cell towers out Mission Mountain Highway 40 area, so there'll be cell service out there, which is great for anyone traveling out there. What else have we got? Seton Bridge is supposed to be completed this summer. I think we have better hopes of that being completed than the 10-mile slide. And like I said earlier, our council meetings have been changed to 1 a month, at least until the end of the year. And then we'll see how that goes. And, you know, possibly we might do 1 a month for the following year. Not really sure. Like I say, it's on a trial basis. Lots of planning and things going on here. The childcare meeting that we had, we're actually seriously thinking of getting together with the Yellowhead Society, which is now presently under running the daycare facility in the mall. And if we can get funding for it, we were thinking of possibly having a childcare site at the Miyazaki house, because it's got beautiful grounds for a playground, and maybe giving the historical artifacts in there, lending them to the Historical Society to go into the museum. I think just due to Dr. Miyazaki's legacy and what he gave to this community, it would be a wonderful thing to see kids playing in that yard and, you know, working on a garden or having a playground. So it's in the works. We're just talking about it right now, and we'll see where that goes. And Swims has basically raised their money. So now it's up to the District of Lillooet to get the pool open. So yay. And then it'll probably rain for the rest of the year and not be hot. And that's about it. The deer have eaten all my tomato plants, so I'm a little in the frump about that. But yeah, that's what's going on in Lillooet.
You got to border your garden with daffodils and the deer will stay away. Let's go to Pemberton.
Thanks. I don't feel like I have a ton. Seeing a shift in tourism happening over the last couple of weeks. It's no longer, roads are no longer just crowded with folks that are looking to find a piece of the backcountry and go hide somewhere and camp. We're seeing more sort of traditional visitation where people are wandering through towns, older couples, families. You're starting to see more of that. So that's encouraging for business anyway. We were able to announce that in partnership with Sea to Sky Community Services, we had a successful application to BC Housing. So we are going to be, well, right now, the vision at this point is approximately 61 units is what we're looking at building. Divided, I won't go into all the detail, but about 61 units focused primarily on seniors, single parents, folks fleeing abuse. So those are and downstairs would be Sea to Sky Community Services. They will provide their services on the ground floor. There's a law, we're just at the very beginning of this. There's a lot of public engagement. It's going to require a rezoning, an amendment to our OCP. And as is common with projects like this, it's going to cause some consternation with certain people who live nearby. And so we expect a very robust conversation in the community as we move ahead on this project. But it's pretty exciting news. It's our first successful application with BC Housing. Hopefully first of more. So that's great news. What else can I tell you? We had, it was interesting during the vigil after the Discovery in Kamloops. I would talk to both the cultural and the political chief in Lillooet to see if they would come and do some drumming in the barn and sort of involve our residents a little bit in that. And it didn't work out. There was also a death in Lillooet right around the same time. So there was a lot going on in their community, but typically, or not surprisingly, they spontaneously showed up on Indigenous Day in the barn. Fortunately, I was there. I had no heads up. It was awesome though. A whole bunch of Lillooet members poured into the barn and formed a drumming circle. And it was really, really neat. I've been to so many drumming circles and listened and it was really nice to hear for the first time in months actual joy in their song and actual joy in the drumming, and the energy was really, really awesome. I was super grateful for them showing up and opening their circle to Pemberton residents, and I think Pemberton residents were pretty grateful as well. So it was a really cool scene. Really enjoyed that. And looking at a very muted Canada Day on the other hand. I think we're gonna, we have a few activities planned in Pemberton. There's a town scavenger hunt, things like that are designed for families and kids, obviously, or not obviously, but our usual large gathering is not going to happen. And I think also, again, in light of the Discovery in Kamloops and our focus on what's happened, I think it's going to change. As in most communities, it's going to change how we celebrate Canada Day this year. So it'll be interesting. Other than that, it's busy development, busy building. I think we had 150 building permits last year, which is a lot for our little town. So yeah, I mean, I remember when I first ran for mayor, I think we had one that year. maybe 2 building permits for porches. This year we had about 150. So it's really interesting. Staff's having a hard time keeping up. Some interesting applications coming down the pipe. But yeah, it's pretty full on. And I think that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Whistler.
Mike's update was sounds very similar to ours. National Indigenous Persons Day it felt celebratory, which was awesome. There was drumming, there was memorials for the 215 people found. There was sort of a sense of this is our, Whistlerites included in what was taking place, which was awesome. Super busy, still dealing with this cybersecurity issue and a lot of the sort of knock-on effects of it, which are extremely challenging. And we gave third reading to the 5298 Alta Lake Road proposal. Lots of construction happening right now, lots of cranes all over the town building apartment buildings, which is exciting. And yeah, again, to Mike's point, summer feels like it's almost in full swing here. Our parks are extremely busy. The town is extremely busy. It feels like this summer will ramp up very quickly. And that's a big change. 3 weeks ago, it felt like the province hadn't really turned its mind to traveling, though they were being told they could come, from Fraser Health and Vancouver Coastal Health into Whistler and the Sea to Sky corridor. It didn't feel like that uptake was happening, and now it has. And I expect as soon as school finishes, it is going to be busy up here. That's all I have. It's so nice to know that Chair Ford's right behind me, and I can miss whatever I want, and she'll pick it up. It's perfect.
We had a public engagement, our first town hall. It was virtual on the Beatty property, which has in the past been known as Holborn. It has been known as the Whistler Racquet Club. It's the last remaining vacant lot in the village core. It's got old deals from generations ago that have not been fulfilled. And so we're going through a process of engaging with the community about what they would like that space to look like and what purpose it should serve. And we had almost 130 people come to this virtual open house, which was pretty cool. It doesn't stop there. They'll continue to engage at the farmers market on a weekly basis with poster boards so people can share and learn what the prospect of that space is, which is pretty cool. Unpopular move, we implemented one of our first climate action strategy moves to bring pay parking to our parks. We are super unpopular. It is a pilot project. We are listening, we are hearing, but we took the best information we could find as far as, you can't just park in Stanley Park. You can't just park anywhere without paying for it. But our big climate move is to ask people to walk or bike if they can, take the bus if you can, and if you can't, parking, housing cars has a cost and someone has to pay for it. And so to make that modal shift, we've asked people to park at prime time. It's not all the time. It's just between 10 and 5. You can walk your dog before 10 and you can jump in the lake after 5. But you can certainly go to the parks for a pretty nominal fee during the day. And that's Whistler. And let's go ahead to Squamish.
Okay, well, Director Stoner can back me up if I forget anything important. We passed our second development permit for the Oceanfront, but this time it was for the presentation center, which will house a restaurant of over 100 seats and a patio of about 85 seats, and is likely to include a brewery. And it's being made out of mass timber and will have cedar siding reminiscent of longhouses. The nation is a partner on the Oceanfront, and it is a beautiful building. It also has solar panels and a wind power generation on it. So it will be one of our most climate friendly buildings in terms of embodied carbon and producing some of its own energy. And it's really exciting to see developers to start to take that lead. The Oceanfront Park also gets underway this summer, which will finally connect our community to the ocean in a really beautiful way. So we're excited about that. This week, Council saw its 10-year capital plan, which scared the socks off me. Yeah, when you look at over $200 million that you need to figure out how to fund in the next decade, it is humbling when your community is at 23,000 people. So lots for us to contemplate and juggle. And this is really being driven by old assets that unfortunately there was no reserve created for buildings in our history. And so as buildings reach end of life, there's no money in reserve to replace them. So let us be a lesson to all of you about what happens when you don't plan ahead and all of your buildings hit end of life in the same decade. Yeah. So, but grateful to have that. It's the first time the district has looked with that longer term view and has a model for a 10-year capital plan. So I'm relieved it's there, and it's really easy to keep rose-colored glasses on when you're only working at 1-year increments. When staff show you the decade in front of you, it's very eye-opening. So anyway, that was a challenging conversation. In relation to our social procurement policy, we have a P card system, so that's a purchasing card system, so credit cards that our staff can use, and they'll all get trained on how they can support local business with those purchases. And in case you missed it, the province is supporting the BC Social Procurement Initiative. So this is something that Squamish joined when it was on the island. And now it's received $500,000 from the province to go province-wide. And so Squamish will be part of expanding people's knowledge and willingness to join on the mainland. So if you'd like me to come and present to your council or board, along with Scale Collaborative, who are the group that provide a lot of the training and support, I'm totally happy to do this. I think this is one of the most exciting topics. It's a sleeper issue, but it's a way that we can fundamentally transform how we spend our money locally to the benefit of our communities. So that was good news to see the province support that. And then finally, we have a whole bunch of work that's been going on around employment space. We created an employment space demand model a few years ago that we've been using to inform our planning decisions around how much space we need to set aside for employment given the residential increase. And there's a really interesting piece of work coming up that we're calling the business viability research. So we've been working with land economists to develop economic modeling and a forecasting tool to assist us in understanding our local economic conditions of space and land availability and the impacts on different business sectors and whether they can be viable here. And so that will help us in sort of planning our economic development strategy going forward. So that's coming up in July, and I'm really interested in seeing that report. I haven't seen that done by another municipality, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that works with our employment-based demand model and our current land costs and what is available to see how we start to shift that equation and make sure that the businesses we're trying to attract here can actually get a foothold and make a go of it. So yeah, that's our update. And Councillor Stoner, I'm happy, or Director Stoner, happy if I missed anything you think we should share.
I will just add that we also adopted our demolition waste diversion bylaw a few weeks ago. So this, when somebody comes in and gets a demolition permit, they're also required to put down a certain amount of money and then subsequently provide a report on their diversion targets and how much they've achieved, and they can get that fee refunded to them based on how well they do at achieving their diversion targets. So if you do less than 40% diversion, you don't get anything back, and then it's kind of a scaled rate going above that. So that was exciting to see come forward and adopted.
Great. I think I didn't miss anybody. Okay. Thank you all. Let's move along to 11.2, which is the UBCM resolution from Director Birch Jones.
Thank you. I didn't think this would be well received by Director Mack, so I sent it ahead to him and asked for a comment. And he immediately replied, "Horrible," with 3 exclamation marks. So I must say, I do have a little post-traumatic stress from working on this in the early 2000s, late 90s on the land and resource management plan, and then on around habitat protection for the northern spotted owl. And so I do get pretty wound up about it. And I think that the first 4 paragraphs in the preamble, I will be very happy to just delete and just reference having attended one of the sessions in Merit. We all provided some input, and it was reflected in the old growth strategic review, which is pretty good, and so on. So I also think we should make a point of saying something about, even though it is in the report, involving the local communities and First Nations in any planning, but importantly, in any benefits that accrue from any forestry activities. So that would be another line that I might add, but otherwise the 2 whereases and the therefores that you see in your package, I'm happy to move them or take any questions.
Okay, Director Elliott, and then Director Mack.
Just wondering, Chair Ford, if you know if UBCM is putting forward a resolution on this topic at the executive level or not.
I do not know. I am not on the resolutions committee. I suspect there will be, because I suspect that there will be quite a few from different areas, but yeah, I can't say. But if it's something we want to support, I think we should just put it forward. And if anything, they're trying to kind of collect them together so that they'll be handled sort of as not as a block, but if there's any overlapping, that they're not dealing with multiple of the same content. Director Mack.
Can I just ask a follow-up to
sure.
Director Birch Jones? The therefore clause, it says, be it resolved that the government act on the recommendations in the report. But the and place a moratorium, is that in the report?
Not in as many clear words as I would like to see. And so that is an important point of the resolution, because the talking and logging has gone on for decades and decades. And so that is an important request as part of the resolution.
Because I know the province has been clear they're reluctant to do that unless there's First Nations agreement. So I'm a little bit hesitant of overstepping our, overstepping without the consulting with First Nations on this. But you're right, there's lots of talk, but a moratorium impacts a lot of communities and a lot of businesses. And so it's a hard thing to ask for, but if that's the direction of the board, that's the direction of the board.
Okay. Thank you. Director Mack?
Yeah, I talked to Vivian about this, and the first, I guess, draft that she sent me, yeah, the first preamble was, in my mind, horrible, pretty harsh. But I mean, I know that something has to be done, and I believe there's momentum now to get something done. But the thing that I do agree with Mayor Elliott on is we have to be very careful of just say endorsing something or throwing something out there that could impact our communities dramatically, because whether we like it or not, forestry is a huge part of the income of this province. And I know in my area, in Area C, there's a lot of people, Native people as well, who rely on forestry. And I know Lillooet have now become a major player in the forest industry in Area C. So I think that's something that has to be really considered going forward with whatever resolution we make, because I do not want it to impact the ability of people to make a living and the companies be able to survive. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Crompton? And then Director Rainbow?
Yeah, the word that was used, if I remember correctly, by the Squamish Nation was deferral. That was what was used by the Pachidat. That's what has been used by the Cheakamus Community Forest, which indicates future consultation and work towards solutions that could end up in a moratorium. And for me, the voices of the Squamish Nation and the Lillooet Nation in our current context are important to hear, I think, and they are recommending deferral.
Director Rainbow?
Yeah. First of all, I support, I understand the importance of logging to this province. It's maybe not as big an industry as it used to be, but it's still incredibly important and it still employs a lot of people. Now, having said that, I fully support what Vivian is trying to do here. You know, at the recent Housekeeping Forum, there was somebody from forestry there talking about what's it called, the visual, what it looks like when people are logging. And I asked him at the time, or I made the comment to him at the time that, yeah, we must continue with logging. We can't just shut logging down. But why do we have to do it the way that we used to do it 100 years ago? Why do we have to do it? Why does it have to be the same model of logging? And if you've been to Europe, for example, if you've been anywhere in Switzerland and Austria, you see a lot of evidence of logging if you go looking in the woods for it. It's tough to see it from the highway. You see mills with tons of logs being processed, but you don't really see the impact of the logging because they have a different way of doing it. It's not, I think Vivian uses the word mining, where you just go in and sort of just take out everything in a cut block. Their way of logging is selective. It employs more people. It takes more time. But you end up with the environment benefits from that. The forests are healthier. You don't sort of diminish the ability of the forest to eat up carbon and so on. So I don't see a problem of making this kind of a statement, asking for something which maybe is going to be really, really difficult to get and maybe impossible to get. But what it can do and what we should be doing is really forcing that question, forcing into the public discussion. Why should we continue to log the way that we've always logged? What are the alternatives? What can we do to continue the industry, but at the same time, but do it in a better way? And the foresters that are guiding the industry right now, they're trained at somewhere like UBC. They're trained to think a certain way. We have to get to the universities as well and suggest to them that there needs to be some changes in the way that they train people in forestry. So I think we need to make this kind of a strong statement, and let's see where it leads us. So thank you, Vivian. Thank you.
Okay, Director Birch-Jones.
I hear loud and strong what Director Crompton is saying, and you're right. The language that the First Nations are using is deferral. And if that makes this more palatable, I'm okay with that. We do have one community forest at Hackliff, and they're doing some really fine selective logging, and they have a better forest there now. They're really in this for the long term. There's lots of models of how to do it better, but they take longer. Profit margins aren't as great. Less waste, that's one thing that really burns me up looking out there in the forest. And here, and Sal's not here anymore, but a lot of our trucks, they're just going farther and farther out the bridge and higher right up to the white bark. And they take a few beautiful trees, it's true, but they leave an astonishing mess to slash and burn behind because of the nature of their machines. Like, this is just, I don't think, a good way to use this resource or a good way to do business. So, yeah.
Okay, so this is our resolution to put forward, and I do appreciate the work and time that everyone has put in, well, especially Director Birch-Jones. You've put a lot of time and research into this. And I think that we're all very much agreed that the sentiment is right. Is the language what we want to put forward as a board? Director Mack and then Director Elliott.
Yeah, as Vivian just said, I would like to see that that moratorium be replaced with deferral. That fits in, I think, better with the First Nations folks. That's maybe what they're deferring. I know for a fact that the Lillooet Nation they've taken over some big timber licenses in this area, and they are definitely going to be logging. So if they're using the word deferral, and they can make sure that what they log is not classified as old growth. And that's another thing that I guess another discussion. The way they base old growth on the coast is 250 years, and in the interior, 150. On our property here, I have lots of big pine trees that are over 600 years old. There's lots of fir trees on this property that are over 150, so they classify as old growth, but that's all throughout this area. So if you base it on that, then we would shut everything down, and that can't happen. So I would like to see moratorium replaced with deferral. Thank you.
Director Elliott.
I agree with Director Mack on replacing that word. I would perhaps add in consultation with First Nations after it. And then I think the background document, while I respect Director Birch-Jones's history on this topic, it's a little bit too personal and emotional, and I think we have to just stick to the facts. And I think we should mention the somewhere in there the province's modernizing forest policy intentions paper that they recently published. So I would shorten it, and I think everyone understands this issue, so I don't think our background document has to be lengthy.
I agree with that. Okay, so would someone like to make the motion that we move forward a resolution to UBCM for convention as laid out, whereas the provincial government completed a provincial-wide, you've got the whereases there. I think it refers to the document that you're mentioning, Director Elliott. And then the therefore would be amended to say, be it resolved that the government act on the recommendations in the report and place a deferral in consultation with First Nations on all old growth logging while the planning, consultation, and meetings take place. Does that satisfy the language that we all want to capture, Director Clark?
Thanks, Chair. Did you delete the second whereas, or did?
No, I skipped over it.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Because there's lots. We have the two whereases, and the only amendment is to the therefore.
Thank you.
Anyone want to make that motion?
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Stoner. Further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Director Elliott.
Just for clarity, the document that I was referring to is not referred to in our motion, but it should be referred to in the background document.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further comments? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. We're on 11.2. We're on 12.1, which is a request for support from the RMOW to support our motion to support the Help Cities Lead campaign, which is coming from a number of local governments around the province. Does anybody have any questions? Director Elliott?
I was going to move support.
Move support, seconded by Director Stoner. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. 12.2, we have an opportunity to meet with BC Hydro. Would anyone like to set a meeting with BC Hydro? Director Elliott?
I just wondered, since we got the letter from Area D residents on the road after Jack Webster, if it's worth bringing that to the attention of BC Hydro.
Director Rainbow?
I think Hydro already know about that. Well, I know they do, but yeah, I mean, we could meet with them. It wouldn't hurt to meet with them to talk about that and discuss the future of that road. I'm not sure how much new information we'll get from them or they will get from us. But
I feel like we have a pretty open line back and forth between the area director and BC Hydro on that. Like, it doesn't feel like you need a formal meeting at UBCM to have that conversation. I feel like you could have that conversation. I mean, I'm happy for you to set up a meeting if you like, but I just feel like your relationship is stronger than most.
Yeah. I don't think we need a separate meeting at UBCM. No.
Okay. So we'll receive that correspondence for information then. Moved by Director Elliott, seconded by Director Rainbow. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And 12.3 was the correspondence that Director Birch Jones requested to be pulled, which was 6.3.4. Go back to that. And that was the District of Saanich on Carup ending. Director Birch Jones.
So in my first year, I was really delighted to know that we were actually tracking our carbon footprint. I believe it was part of this program. And the Lillooet landfill had a significant hand in contributing credits. And I've been curious to see how that worked and how we came up with those numbers ever since. But I do believe we came out at a 0. I just think there's a heck of a lot of value. There's a system in place. Communities have been using it. I don't know if it's a brilliant system, but it's better than anything else we've got. And I thought, I don't think we should waste that. I wanted to support. Now I have to go back to find it, but yeah.
So their letter is recommending a letter to the Premier and a resolution to the UVCM regarding, I believe, their disappointment in the abrupt end to the CAREP program, and requesting that a new program be formulated to replace it on a not on an application basis, but on the, what's it called, merits basis, I think. Anyhow, I don't think we have. Do you have a question on that, Director Birch-Jones, that hasn't been answered?
Okay, maybe the question should be, does staff think this is a valuable tool in terms of our climate action planning? Or is this something we can just drop?
Go ahead, CEO Helmer, and then I have Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I think this particular, the end to the CAREP, the province did send us a notice to let us know that they were going to be discontinuing CAREP, but they anticipate that there will be another funding program to come forward to replace it. And we're waiting for further information on what that program will look like. It's hard to determine whether it's going to be a better tool or what that's going to look like until the province does come out with that. They've indicated to us as staff that they anticipate it will be a robust program and it will support local governments in climate action initiatives. But we don't have sufficient information to make a judgment call on that yet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll keep that tool on the side of your desk, Director Birch-Jones, and remember it when the new program gets released. Director Elliott, go ahead.
I know the District of Squamish sent a really strongly worded letter for a number of reasons why CAREP's important, and it's because it's non-competitive. We don't have to apply for it. We get it, and it's one of the most important things for small communities and busy local governments is that you can depend on that funding coming in every year. It also makes sure that everyone measures their GHGs in exactly the same way, so there's consistency across the province. And third, it provides so much flexibility so that we can direct it based on our community climate action plans. So it's not the type of grants we see right now where you've got to spend it on diking or you have to spend it on parks infrastructure. You can spend it on education, you can spend it on your landfill, you can do whatever you want as long as it's lowering your GHG emissions. So those are the 3 reasons we said to the province, hey, we'd be happy to chat with you about this new program you're directing, but it's got to include at least these 3 things. Non-competitive, makes everyone measure things in exactly the same way, and allows maximum flexibility. There are communities all over this province that have funded positions with that funding and have no idea if they can continue because of the uncertainty this has caused. So to me, I think the more voices, the better. So I think we should send our own letter and follow the lead of lots of other places and highlight those 3 issues and say, you know, you've got to talk to local government, but at a minimum, these 3 things should be there.
Okay, I saw Director Crompton's hand.
I would second that motion.
So the motion is to write a letter of our own, highlighting the 3 reasons that this is important to local governments and to lend our support to previous letters. Is that correct? Seconded by Director Crompton. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. I look forward to that letter. That'll be great. Thanks for bringing that forward, Director Birch-Jones. Is there any late business today? Director Stoner, go ahead.
I ran out of time before this meeting to put together a UBCM resolution on parental leave. I'm wondering if there's any mechanism for me to still be able to do that prior to the June 30th deadline without crafting it here on the floor. I do have some suggested language, but I just don't have a background brief to go with it. So that would just be my question in terms of process.
Director Rainbow, do you have an answer to that?
Well, I don't have an answer. I have a comment that I believe we discussed this before, and that my impression was that the board fully supported what Director Stoner wanted to do. So, and the deadline is, I believe, in 1 week's time.
Yeah, it's June 30th.
June 30th. So if she had time to craft something in the next couple of days, I wouldn't mind making a motion that said that we would approve that. I don't know how you want to word it, but we would give her permission, if you like, to go ahead and do that, and we would accept it.
Maybe. Let's go to Director Elliott.
I missed the last meeting. How would this be different than the one that was passed in 2016?
It is not significantly different. It's redirected to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs because the previous ministry that it was addressed to no longer exists. And so it's just raising it back up, given that 5 years have passed and that ministry is no longer there.
Can you write it for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could write it
we
before
could
tomorrow, because we reopen tomorrow, so we can put it in at the end of the agenda.
That I can do.
It's good timing because I was on a call with a whole bunch of elected women leaders, and they assumed that the 2016 motion at UBCM had changed the community charter. And fortunately, Minister of Municipal Affairs was on the call, and she said to everyone, oh, no, we haven't changed the community charter yet. So you still have to pass your own policies, which was a shock to everyone. So this is a good opportunity to remind everyone that this hasn't been done again. So yeah, love to see that come forward tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, thank you for that. Director Clark, do you have somewhere that will be slotted in on the agenda for tomorrow?
I'm just thinking here.
I think we would need a decision under section 13 and we could make it a 14.1.
Okay, and then defer discussion of 14.1 to tomorrow? Yep, okay. So could I have someone move that we go through this process? Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Crumpton. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Any other notice of motion under 15? Seeing none, I guess we can recess this meeting till tomorrow. Director Clark, am I going way too fast?
Thanks, Chair. So we just passed a motion under 13 to consider the late business item that Director Stoner talked about.
Yeah.
And so then perhaps we could have a motion to defer item 14.1 until tomorrow.
Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Mack. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, I'm going to call a recess to this regular board meeting, and we will reconvene tomorrow with Committee of the Whole, 9 a.m.